What's up, friends? Tom Perrone, strongholdtraining.com. Welcome back to another edition of Growing Smart, the Stronghold podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how to sell more through email. Not exactly email marketing. We're going to talk really about email selling, slightly different. Strap on in. Let's go. So we are ready to begin today. I am on the road. Hopefully the background noise is not a disruption to the show. But disruption is what we are actually here to talk about. So back in the day, when I say in the day, I'm talking about like the 90s, 2000s time period. In that day, when email marketing was killing it, you could pretty much just bring in leads and opportunities through well-crafted emails like nobody's business. For anybody out there that enjoyed that, you understand how different today is. Automation of emailing was working so well that you didn't even have to send the email yourself. You could build these automations. If someone opened the email, they were automatically hit with follow-ups. The question was, what do you say? How frequently do you say it? Today, the question is, does email even work? Can I even email someone? The Can-Spam Act, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Can-Spam Act was released quite a while ago, which basically cracked down on spam. And while you're still getting it, the infractions for it are much higher. So most email service providers, a term you should know about, that's the ESP, not an internet service provider, ISP, it's who you get your internet from, but an ESP, an email service provider, is the one who really watches you for this. Not so much the government, it's more the ESP. The government watches the ESP. So when it comes to sending out emails, especially what we traditionally know as spam emails, they're typically coming from these large email service providers. So, or they're coming from someone who's created an email service provider, or an email spam provider is what they've really created. So when you think of an ESP, you're really thinking of companies like MailChimp, Google is, or Gmail is really an ESP. But things like MailChimp, Constant Contact, Aweber, these are things that you can sign up for and send emails through to large lists. And of course, they're available because they do things like allow you to unsubscribe. They'll make you put things in there like how you obtained the list. And they do all of that to make sure you're meeting the requirements of the Can-Spam Act. And what these email service providers are pretty good at these days is if you are actually spamming people, they'll shut you down. The problem is that they can't control it entirely. They do get people that spam, whether intentional or unintentional. So sometimes even certain email service providers end up in people's junk mail. And on the other end, your email service provider you're using, your Gmail, your Yahoo account, your company's server, they've got things built in to try to filter out traffic, especially trying to filter out traffic that could be bringing viruses and potential ransomware and hacks to your company. So there's a lot of things in place. My point in going through all that is not to educate you entirely on everything that's out there. It would take an entire show. Maybe we'll do that another day. But what I want you to understand is the mechanisms in place to send and receive email are almost entirely built right now to protect people from getting unwanted mail. The reason why is people don't want mail that they don't want. They only want mail that they do want. And so email marketing has become a very highly sensitive thing. People are real quick to throw the flag of spam, to unsubscribe, or even worse, to delete. Delete can be worse because they're not unsubscribing, they're opening, and then they're not reading, they're deleting. It's harder to track that. I can't track who deletes my mail. I can only track who unsubscribes, marks me as spam, or opens it. So if they're opening and deleting over and over and over again, I have no idea if I'm getting through. And at the end of the day, this is what we're really here to talk about today. The fact of the matter is that if you are arriving in someone's inbox and they are opening your message, the chances of that opportunity for them to read what you say, if you're a stranger to them, and for them to then turn around and do business with you or respond back and say, hey, I'm interested, is very low, especially if you are sending an email that is just a pitch and you are not connecting with them in a very specific way. So the reason I say all of that is to simply say this. This is not about, we're going to talk about today, is not about email marketing, but about email selling. I think email marketing for the most part is dead. Now, email marketing is very much alive if someone subscribed to your list. If you've done business with someone in the past, or you've out on social media, used a lead magnet, and someone has come in and said, yes, I'd like to hear from you, email marketing to those people still works. Email sales, that I'm going to send an email to someone who doesn't know me, email prospecting in a massive way. I'm going to send 1,000 emails out to a bunch of people who don't know me. That is not only probably illegal today, but really ineffective today. So what we want to do is actually have a very targeted one email to one prospect approach. Well, guess what that is? That's selling. That's not really marketing. That's selling. Now, if you're just sending a canned brochure in the form of an email, then yeah, I guess that's marketing, but that's pretty worthless today. What we actually need to do is go back to selling, and if you are properly and truly selling, you can still do that over email. But what you have to do is what you have to in emails, what you have to do in sales, which is initiate a dialogue. You have to initiate a dialogue. And the best way to initiate a dialogue with someone you think you can help is to actually, here, wait for it, to actually help them. That's right. The crowd goes wild. You see, people want help. And if you think you can actually help someone, so you're going to sell to them, the best way to do that is to actually help them first before you pitch your product. It's going to be the best way to demonstrate what you can do. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. But you have to really wrap your head around this concept briefly first. You have to commit yourself to helping them. You're going to pitch your product while you're doing it, or your service while you're doing it, but you have to commit yourself to helping them. It's really difficult, I have found, for salespeople or business owners, entrepreneurs, when they step into the realm of I'm crafting an email to get someone's attention I want to work with. It all of a sudden, like, we forget our manners, we forget our sense of social ability, and we just become like these awkward, like advertising executives or something. It's just really weird and awkward, these emails you get. You're like, do you really talk to people like that? And by the way, I'm totally guilty of doing this. So number one, you got to say, how would I talk to these people if I was standing in front of them? I understand the medium is different. We're on email, but how would I talk to them if I was standing in front of them? That's the first thing you want to ask yourself. And then you have to ask yourself this next question. If I would talk to this person in a certain way, which would probably be asking them questions. If I'm good at sales, if I'm a Stronghold training client, I know how to actually do a discovery meeting with someone. I know what questions I'm going to ask them. Then the next question is, if they answer those questions appropriately, and they actually are a qualified prospect for me, how would I then begin helping them? And that's where you're going to key in on. That's what you actually want to begin doing. Because one of two things is going to happen. Either what you send to them is going to actually help them, and that's going to be the greatest connection you could ever make with them, or it's not going to be helpful to them, and they're going to not respond because they're not a prospect. And that's great. Now, sure, maybe they just don't respond because it's email. I mean, there is a certain strategy and a certain numbers game to email. We'll talk about that in a second. But the important thing here is the best way to find out if they're actually a prospect and the best way to connect with them if they are is to actually help them. Okay? You've really got to believe that. What we do is we say, how would I talk to them? What questions would I ask them? So go ahead and pause here if you need to. Say, how would I talk to a person if I was standing in front of them? What questions would I ask them? And then if they responded positively, what help would I give? Let me give you a real world, real life example here. So in my business, okay, I'm the easiest to pick on. It's actually very hard for me to sell to business owners. Selling consultation, consulting, training to businesses is actually very difficult. It's one of the toughest sales. I'm not just saying that because I do it or because I feel bad for myself. I'm not looking for sympathy. It just is. If you talk to marketing companies, they'll say it's one of the hardest ones to get in front of for them. Is what I do. So they don't like working with me sometimes. There's people that specialize in what I do. So if I'm, say, at a networking group and there's a business owner sitting there, he's got a sales team of, say, 5 salespeople, what I would walk up to him and say is, how are you doing on your goals? What has your strategies been to, say, reaching your goals? And how did you come up with that strategy? Might be a question I ask. And how well have you been able to implement that strategy? Is your issue coming up with new strategies for next year or better implementing the strategies you already have? Those questions are dynamite. They really get business owners talking. So if they were to say to me, Tom, I really could use help implementing strategies. We've got some great strategies, but my sales team they kind of go rogue, or I'm not really sure when they're on site if they're really following the processes we've given them. I don't really have a way to know other than the numbers. But there's some real disparity between my team. The top dog is way out of the league compared to the bottom rung player, and it just seems like there's some issues there. Well, what I would immediately do is begin helping them coach their A players and their lower end players and teach them how to actually coach those players and how to assess and help them to actually implement their strategies in the field. So I could say, here's 3 tips for helping your sales team implement. Here's 3 tips for coaching low producing performers to be more like your top producing performers. Here's an idea of why there might be a difference between the two and what I often find in teams, and you can self-diagnose. And what I'll do is take those things, put those in a video, and then I can just email that to people. So the subject line would sound like, are your A performers greatly outperforming your lower performers? And then the start of that email might say, hey, I work with a lot of folks who have great sales strategy, but it's the implementation of that strategy that is not always on point. Sure, their top producers do great, but their bottom producers just seem like they're not implementing, and there's not really enough time in the day to be on site to figure out what's going on. Here's a couple of things you can do to figure out if you're struggling from some of these lack of implementation issues. And here's a couple things you can do about it if you are. And click to watch the video or click to read the blog. You could have 2 or 3 videos depending on which way they want to go. Very, very helpful. So now they got an email speaking right to them if they're a prospect in a way that would be the same way I would talk to them if I was in front of them, and I actually give them the help I would give them in some short, concise ways. And that's it. That's my email thing. And now who do I send that to? 1,000 people on my list? Absolutely not. I would send that email directly to someone I want to work with. I would find their email address and I would send it to them and say, this is for you, Joe at ABC Company. I think I could be a resource for you. This will help you figure out if I can. And it's really just that simple. Now, what about the spam laws? Isn't that going to fall into that? Well, if I'm sending one email to one person, typically no, but we have to be careful. We have to be careful. So one of the things I like to do is to actually use social media for this. So I reach out to them over social media with a message that's very similar, such as LinkedIn. The very similar message, I find that to be very helpful, is to just do it there. If they connect with me on LinkedIn, then as a LinkedIn contact, I will send them an email and say, hey, you're a LinkedIn contact of mine. That's why I'm sending this to you. And I put that in the email. If that's in the body of the email or at the footer of the email, it's less likely that could be processed under the Canned Spam Act. The other thing that I will do is I'll actually call the company. Imagine that. I'll pick up the phone, call the company, try to reach the person. Of course, a lot of times today you end up in their voicemail. So I'll leave a simple voicemail saying, hey, it's Tom with Stronghold Training. I really think I could be a resource for you. I'm going to go ahead and send you an email with some help that I would want to give you if we were working together. I'm just going to go ahead and help you out. I'm going to send you an email with some things that I think are going to really help you. Take a look, and if it helps you and you'd like to talk more, respond to my email. So I preempt the email where I'm actually going to help them. And what this does is it protects people who are so scared of salespeople. Now they feel safe. They get a voicemail. They're safe. They listen to the voicemail. They look for the email now because I said I was going to send it to them. It says it's actually going to help them. They read the subject line. They read the intro to the email. They go, yeah, that's something I could use help on. They watch the video. By the way, my email tracking software I use, Yesware, tracks all of this. And I use Kartra, which is going to tell me if they watch the video. So now they watch the video. I know how much I know when they open my email, if they click on my attachment, I know how much of my video they're watching. They actually watch my videos, they get help. And you know what? They may respond, and a lot of times I'll just get a simple thank you. Sometimes I'll get a, hey, we'd love to talk further. Of course, there's a link in my email to schedule a call with me if they'd like. And a lot of times they don't do anything at all. But I know they watched my email. Sometimes they'll watch the email, they'll watch the video more than once. And I know these people are warmer. And now I can just take my time. And you know what I can do? Keep helping them. Don't start pitching them. Just keep helping them. Turning it now to a sale is just going to push them away. You just keep helping them. And if you keep helping them, eventually they come around. You don't have to be over the top with that. I'm actually avoiding deletes, unsubscribes, and spams by helping people. And if I can keep helping them and warm them up, when the time is right, they'll reach out to me because they'll be comfortable and I've already helped them. It's going to allow me to raise my price. I'm going to have more trust when I go in and actually pitch to them. And it really, really works. Really works. I never actually have to pitch someone. I just have to keep helping them. This is how email sales is done right, on a real personal level, very direct, and focused on helping. Hey, if I can help you to craft these emails, to develop the strategy, or to work with your sales team to actually implement this stuff, check me out on strongholdtraining.com. Keep listening to the podcast. I'd love to hear if it's helping you out or what I'm missing. Until then, this has been Tom Perrone with the Growing Smart Podcast. I'll see you on the next episode.